The contribution of the Chinese Americans during World War II was very, very significant. During World War II, for the Chinese who were here, they were facing an incredible legacy of discrimination. The Chinese Exclusion Act had been in place for a long, long time, which barred the immigration of Chinese laborers and denied them many rights that other Americans had. The young men were drafted. Many of them volunteered as well and fought overseas. And their sacrifice and contribution during wartime really helped pave the way for the acceptance of Chinese Americans by the larger society.
I was 18 years old, and when the war came on, they drafted me. I took my basic training at Fort Lewis, and I found out I was fortunate to be in what they call a 176 Ordnance Depot Company.
When I got out of high school, this is a funny part of it, I was graduated, and it was in summer that I went down to Astoria, Oregon, and I worked in the fish cannery down there. I remember it was, I remember I was chopping wood down in the basement and cutting up kindling wood. And she said, "Jack," I said, "What?" She said, "The Japanese just bombed Pearl Harbor." I said, "That's where's Pearl Harbor?" So I says, "Well, Jesus, I better go home." And sure enough, I went home and I got a letter and I was drafted.
Well, we felt that it was something we had to do. We figured it was a very, in the Second World War, you wore a uniform, people catered to you. You want to hitchhike, they'll stop and give you a ride.
I got drafted, and then they went around camp asking for volunteers, and I got bored. So I volunteered. It was not the brightest thing to do, but that's the way it is. And
I went to college for about 2 terms when I got drafted. So, you get that little letter that says, greetings.
I was drafted. I thought about joining the Marine Corps, and my dad actually drove me up to Seattle, and we talked to Marine Corps recruiters up here.
I was drafted in Seattle. After I came to the United States, the first 2 weeks, the Selective Service sent me a draft, drafted me. Only 2 weeks.
I was on the verge of being drafted, and after seeing how my brother came back from Vietnam, I decided to join the Navy so I wouldn't have to go to Vietnam.
When I was 17 and a half, and I was still a sophomore, the ruling was that if you were not at least a senior by the time you're 18, you're eligible for the draft. And so I kind of waited, and I said, well, should I, enlist, or should I wait to draft it? So the last 3 or 4 months, I just quit school, went to work, and wait to be drafted, which I was immediately.
I'm on, sir. Okay. I said, what the hell, it's going to just get me away sooner or later, not as much I'll go.
You get a high education, or you have to go to the commission officer. So you cannot be 2 years, okay? Because they give you to go to school training, so you have to be, probably a 6 year or up or whatever. See, mine is I just want to go in for 2 years, If you're lucky to get killed, you come back or whatever, see. That's the war,
My first dead body I saw was a German soldier. He was laying outside a pillbox. You know what a pillbox is? A pillbox is like a little small underground fort. And he was laying there, and God, he looked like a statue. I mean, he was all, laying there. And then when I saw my first dead American soldier, then I got a little nervous, see.
I have had houses shelled around me. I've had houses shelled when I was in them. I have had artillery shells, American artillery shells, explode behind me. when they were supposed to be supporting us in an attack.
Around Christmas time, we reached the area of the Philippine Island. 50 caliber machine, which I was never trained how to use it. But I was told by the captain, you mean it, but don't shoot until you order. And all of a sudden, the Japanese plane flew over, and I got scared. I squeezed. So the captain squeezed it, screamed at me, I told you not to shoot.
I was captured on the patrol with a bunch of guys, and they killed the radio man, and we were trapped because the Germans were on the high ground and we were in the low ground, and we stayed there for I don't know how long, but nobody made a move, and somehow some German guy jumped out of the woods and said, surrender or I shoot. So I guess we had no option but to surrender, and that's how I ended up as a prisoner of war.
My father is Sid Ngao Chin, and he was a veteran of World War II. After the war, their unit was, discharged to come back to America. And I think in a unit there's about 200 men, and on that boat coming back, out of the 200, 2 came back.
It's got nothing worse than living next to a fort with a lot of hungry soldiers, And not only that, but these kids would come in during the war years, and they were our age, of course, because we were high school kids, and they'd look at us and they'd say, what are you? These are kids from Missouri and Kansas who've never seen an Asian person in their lives. They don't know who we are. I said, isn't that a strange question? You're asking me, what am I? Not who am I, but what am I? So, we would tell them we're Chinese. Oh my gosh. They would be so shocked because they've never seen an Asian or Oriental or whatever you want to call us in those days. But those were exciting. The war years were for us very exciting and very cautious periods of time.
The veterans came back and they rededicated themselves to community service. And this was a time period where you didn't have the social service agencies, the community infrastructure that you have today. So, they helped with translating documents, helping them apply for their wives to come over from China so they could reunify. Many of them took advantage of the GI Bill.
Very rare that an Asian went to college and graduated. That was rare as hell, it was just after the war. But they gave us, whoever came up with the idea is a brilliant, the GI Bill of Rights, which gave you a free college education,
Well, it was great. I mean, I don't think the GI Bill that we had today was as good as the one that we had. Because the GI Bill we had, they paid for the books, the tuition, everything. And they gave us a little spending money, too, on top of that. Yeah, it was a great GI Bill.
Gosh, I guess we all had the same problems because all of us got together after the war and said, well, what are we going to do? We took civil service exams, and I think only one person passed that, and I won't name his name again. And we all chose our various fields. We were all in the same boat. No jobs, wanting an education, wanting to get married, wanting to do this and do that, so we all went out in various areas. And then looking back, all of us did well, regardless of the type of occupation that we had or professionalism that we had. They all did real well, thanks to the GI Bill.
Following World War II, an organization was created called the Cathay Post. It was a post of the American Legion. A gentleman by the name of David Wu, many people knew him by his nickname Gabi. David was the visionary founder of the Cathay Post, had been a bomber pilot involved in one of the first bombing missions over Germany. He was shot down and was captured and held in several German prison camps. One of the prison camps was immortalized in this movie, Stalag 17. When he was in prison during the war, he said, if I ever survive this, I'm going to come back after the war and I'm going to start a veterans organization.
Because I know all my friends are in the service. We can each help each other. I know we need. A lot of these guys that went in the first, my group, were China boys. They don't speak in English. They need help filing for this and that. So we when they spoke English, we ran the organization. All these guys in China that don't speak English, they come in and ask for aid. They get ready when we can.
The second year the post was built, I was a junior commander. Gabi was, he was our first commander, and our first location was, we had a little office right across the street from the Four Seas restaurant. It was an apartment upstairs, and we rented the ground floor.
Well, we used to go up to the Cathay Post. Gabi was the commander at that time, and he also worked the club. And we would go up there after work and have a cocktail, have a drink.
We did all the things in those days. But most of the time, when we were on that first location, there was a lot of gambling. Guys would be in the back room playing pai gil.
Once in a while, the policemen would come in through the alley. There's an alley opened up in wasn't Canton yet. What's the alley down there, Maynard? Anyway, the people would come in from the alley entrance, go upstairs, and a lot of times policemen come in there too. But they didn't bother us too much. I was kind of, I think they kind of closed their eyes.
I looked up one, and there was this big policeman. He's standing right before me. He says, "Is the commander in?" I said, "Oh yeah, I am the commander. What's up?" He says, "Well," he asked me, he says, "You know what? You're gambling in there, aren't you?" I said, "Oh yeah, we're gambling in there and we're also drinking. And we're doing everything in there. Come in, I know what you're up to." I said, "Why don't you come in? I want to show you something." There was our bulletin board, and we had our financial statement up there. And it listed all these various organizations that we were supporting, including the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and they both looked at it, and they walked out the door and never came back.
And little by little, we all were on the same boat. Why not? It gives us a chance to get together. And also with the idea of serving the community. We all wanted to do that. We're all still waving the American flag. We got to do everything we can.
Hanging out at the Sanya, this guy asked me, he said, "Why don't you come down and sit down here? I've been here for years and I've seen you." And it was Dan Marr. He wanted to talk. And we talked. And this went on for a year or so. Then finally he said, "Why don't you join the Post?" So the Post it was. I jumped in. One other black member I want to mention was Archie Greer. I can remember when Dan Marr, sitting in the Sanya one night, asked Archie if he wanted to belong to the Post, and Archie started crying.
He wanted to join us. I said, "Come on in." I asked them, to join them. I said, "What do you guys do here?" And I said, "Well, we serve the community in Chinatown." Sometimes hang around together and do something together. I really enjoy those things.
Early 1970s, I met Dan Marr and some others, and they said, "Well, you've served, would you be interested?" And they had several others that were the Uno brothers, and they said, "Well, join Cathay Post." Okay, and I said, "Well, I don't have much time." And so I said, "Okay, I'll join."
Well, first I learned Cathay Post was in the July 4th parade, and they had the booth there, and then I talked to them, and said, I said, I'm a veteran, I want to join them, And I talked, Libby was there, and then he said, "Okay, you're coming down and give you a vacation and you see how it goes."
It was mostly more of a camaraderie idea. Everybody had went through the same experiences and had a lot in common. And the idea that we do a lot of volunteer work to help the community out kind of interested me too, because I was interested in the Chinese community. I wanted to
help do anything I could to improve everything in the community. So that kind of interested me too.
And so they helped establish a community presence, expanding Chinatown beyond that bachelor society into a community which was involved on many civic fronts. So the Cathay Post has had a number of locations in the Chinatown International District area. Once upon a time, they acquired some property and had wanted to develop a clubhouse, much like the Nisei veterans. They never got around to doing that, and they invested their money, a fund which supported scholarships and other community activities.
In those days, hey, we were young, right? We were active, we had a lot of energy, and that's Cathay Post. We did a lot of things, you know. We had a scholarship program. We were the first group in Chinatown to have an annual picnic.
A fond memory I have is that there was a game where they threw pennies on the ground and then covered it up with a whole bunch of hay, and then I think they did it by age group, so they allow us to dive in there and dig for pennies, and I probably got 10. Some other kids got more, but it was just fun. And I know that we were a little tentative because my brother and I both have hay fever, so it was kind of like a suicide mission.
We were the first to have a Christmas party.
A few years I became the Asian Santa Claus. You know, it was like drawing straws. Lloyd, you're it. I think it was fixed.
But I do remember a Santa Claus and getting those red stockings, those plastic stockings that I tried to wear once. But, you know, it has little toys, like a rubber knife and a ball and some plastic things. And the one funny story I have is the Santa Claus was, I think he was a Caucasian man. I recall watching him, and then he lifted up his beard and said, "Are all the kids gone?" And then he saw me and he put it back on.
And we sang, and the kids, you know, it was great. Then we had that, and then we had Santa Claus. Parents took pictures, I took pictures, and after that, well, after they had their eats and whatever, they also, each one of them got a present, you know, a Christmas present from Santa Claus.
During that time of the street fair, Bill Singh, he used to be kind of import-export type of a thing, and he had a lot of fans that he sold, hundreds of thousands of fans, and he would donate that to us, and we would sell them at the street fair at $1 a piece. We would raise, just with the fans itself, we would raise $300 to $400.
I remember we used to have the Miss Chinatown contest, you know, and it was on a small scale in those days. In fact, when we had the big coronation dinner, we had it at some restaurant upstairs, and there maybe be about 4 or 5 tables. That was it.
And then in 1951, Cathay Post sponsored me as Chinatown Queen. It was a fundraiser for Chong Wa, and it was whoever could sell the most tickets. At 25 cents a ticket, I sold over $4,000. And that year I won Queen. And I was in the parades, you know, all the parades that the Seafair had sponsored.
There was the first one, the crab feed. I wasn't too involved in it, but I knew about it and I'd attended. And they'd gotten all these crabs from Pacific Fish, and I think it was $5 all you could eat. And, oh, what a mess. That was a hell of a mess. So then they came up with the spaghetti feed idea, and that was actually quite successful. I can remember Jimmy Leong going out to warm up. The sauce wasn't heating fast enough, so he took a torch to it and put a hole in that pot, which that pot was very expensive, and the Niseis were going to let us ride on that one. And we held these all at Nisei Veterans Hall. And you would go into the kitchen the day before, and always on the table would be a jug or a bottle of liquor. And everybody would work rolling meatballs, buttering up garlic bread, or boiling, making the sauce and all this. And And of course, that jug, you could watch it just go down, and pretty soon when the jug was empty, everybody was gone. And the next morning, we'd all show back up, and there'd actually be another jug in the middle of the table, and we'd have a spaghetti feed. And we worked with Jade Guild, and the ladies of Jade Guild, which was kind of like our Cathay Post auxiliary. They were great. They ran the bake sale, and it got to the point where they'd always put aside a strawberry pie for me, because they knew I just loved strawberry pie. And, you know, the bakery, and I'd always buy so much of this bakery crap and all at home.
The Women's Auxiliary is sort of the women's side of the American Legion, so that we were more related to family and wives and whatever of the veterans and those issues. And of course, those were difficult days, I think, because there was discrimination, there were housing issues, children being educated well, whether it was Chinese education or English education. Schools, I think we were concerned about schools and things like that.
Because the auxiliary was supporting all the activities of the American Legion, whereas Jade Guild was more a community. So they involved different organizations.
We would help out with the fundraisers, and then we've always had the spaghetti feed that we've done a lot of work with and for, and then later on we connected with the Jade Guild and started the bake sale, and that went on for a few years.
It was kind of fast, furious, and a little short-lived, because within about a 5 to 7 year period of time, we were all having children.
And we sponsor softball teams, basketball teams. In fact, I tell you, Ron, we sponsor a basketball tournament, and we had teams from San Jose, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Portland, and we had this big tournament held at Seattle University. In those days, I remember we had a Chinese baseball team, China AC, okay? And the Mahing boys, they batted 3, 4, and 5.
We do boys state. Like exclusively, it's an organization by the American Legion who sends young men. We send 2, and they learn about government. They learn how it works, and they elect their own leaders. Gary Locke went. I remember Gary went. And we don't have anybody in prison, but no, they all did well.
Aside from being a place of community, the other one was the start of like Kenan Nursing Home. Cathay Post made some significant contributions initially at Kenan. The Resource Center made some contributions to that.
I'm now their service officer. There are different VA benefits that a lot of them aren't aware of. And one of the things the Post, as a service officer, that I would advise them what their opportunities of maybe health care or school, or if they're trying to get classified for their disability, a service.
When David Wu decided to create the Cathay Post Veterans Organization, he wanted to create an organization for some of these vets to get together and support one another, have a place to hang out, and then to get involved in community activities. One of the activities that he felt was very, very important post-war was to create a memorial to remember and honor the sacrifices of Chinese Americans who had died, given their life during World War II for this country. So he organized a fundraising effort to build this stone memorial, which would be etched with the names of the 10 Chinese from Seattle who had given their lives. The founders of the Cathay Post are mostly pretty elderly now. In a few years, they'll all be gone. It's important to remember what they sacrificed and what they did.
We just didn't go to war, go anything for nothing, you know, and we want to leave it for the kids to, you know, admire, say, hey, we did something.
I don't know what the future holds for Cathay Post, because practically all the original members aren't there anymore.
You know, we have a hard time recruiting new members, you know, and we have a few from the Vietnam War and the Korean War, but today young people, you know, they they got things to do, right? You know what I mean? I think Cathay Post. I don't know. We still be in business 4 or 5 years from now. I don't know. We got about 7, 8 guys to a meeting, you know. And right now, as far as paid member, I think we have roughly about maybe 90 paid up members, right?
Nowadays, it's kind of hard to tell what's going to happen, because if there's no wars, hopefully there won't be too many returning servicemen to make it continue to grow. That's the thing to do.
I mean, if it's the way it is, you know, if it's going to go away, it's going to go away. You know, I'm quite, you know, as old veterans, W2 veterans, we'll be gone, you know, pretty quick and, you know, pretty soon rather, anyways.
Every Memorial Day, the Chinese American vets, the Cathay Post, they come out Memorial Day and they have a commemoration. The Chinese girls drill team performs, they have speeches, they have benediction. So it's a very solemn ritual, but every year they're out there reminding people to never forget those who sacrificed for this country, and then made a place for future generations to be accepted by this country.
So it's something to remind them that these men did a lot. They even gave up their lives. Some gave up their lives. So this is important to remember. Like they say, freedom's not free.
First of all, they're a really good example to the kids in the International District because of their interest in the scholarship. They do their best, I think, to try to extend their services elsewhere, wherever they can. But for me, they've just been an inspiration just to know them and to know more about the history of Seattle.
Contributions to community has got to be the greatest legacy. It's one of the oldest organizations in Chinatown, and the things they've been involved with, the fundraisers, and the scholarships particularly. There's hundreds of kids out there that have benefited from our scholarships, and hopefully that legacy will carry on through them.
I was glad I was drafted in the Army because, you know, a chance to serve, you know.
Everybody in the community was there, and we just had a great time. We all got to know each other really well. And so we were kind of a community within itself.
Well, Cathay Post was good for the community. It held the people together, and it was a good social thing for us because we didn't have a lot of places to go. We didn't have the money to spend to go night-clubbing and whatever.
So now, Ron, I'm at the end of the story of my life. I'm now 89 years old, and all I'm trying to do is just take care of my health. Try to stay active.
Every war, I disagree. Whether it's Korean War, Vietnam War, Iraq War, Afghanistan War, I'm against it. War is a terrible thing. I fought in a war. I was wounded in a war. I never liked a war. And I hope these children grow up, never have to go to war.
If anything I got out of the war was experience. The ones whom I felt sorry for were not for the soldiers, but for the civilians. I mean, death was obvious when you have a war. And the thing that remains in my mind is so sad in this generation, and to see our grandchildren off the war, and that's what I see during my span of life. It's nothing but wars. So that's my feeling about the war. I love my country, and I'm glad I served my country.
What they say about remembering history is very, very important. We get caught up simply in our own current day problems and issues, and we forget that once upon a time was much harder for people breaking through. Everybody sacrificed a little bit to ensure that there would be progress and better opportunities for those who follow. By remembering these folks who helped build the community, it inspires us to do our work that still needs to be done.